We're going to get started here in just a few minutes. And also, if you have questions, we have note cards and pens that Mimi, where is Mimi? Oh, there's Mimi, that Mimi can hand out periodically if anybody wants to fill out a question.
Just raise your hands and we'll get up there to you.
Can you raise your hands again if you'd like one question? Fill in an Anders card for a question.
Okay, I think we'll go ahead and get started. You good with that? Okay, welcome everyone. It's great to see you all, although we would prefer under different circumstances, of course. My name is Amara Andrews. I am president of the Board of Advocates for Social Justice. I also am a local business owner and concerned community member. I'm happy to be moderating this panel discussion, and we'll try to get your questions to our panelists throughout this afternoon. We'll have two panels here today with people who have a wealth of knowledge. Unfortunately, we've invited others who have declined our invitation, but I will introduce you to my co-moderator, Anthony Arrington.
Thanks, Amara. Again, Anthony Arrington. I am a local community member and board member at Advocates for Social Justice, as well as a local business owner and a concerned citizen. So appreciate you showing up today. We have a lot to discuss. I know that things are heavy on our hearts, and so we want to make the most of the time today and your time, and really be here to support Devonna and her family. So we're going to get started here. First, we need to thank the coalition and the folks that have put this work together. Thanks to Whipple and the library here, but really want to say thanks. Advocates for Social Justice, Marion Alliance for Racial Equity, the NAACP, Parents Against Violence Everywhere, Stand in Unity, and We Are CR, and all the individuals that have been fighting this fight. And so thanks to everybody. This is not just a one organization or one person effort. There's a lot of work. And we have a long way to go. So thank you for that. Should we start with our panelists next year?
Yes. So one thing we do want to discuss before we introduce our panelists is just sort of the why. This coalition of nonprofits and of advocates and activists in our community has been meeting and chatting regularly since Devonna's murder on January 2nd. And we sort of felt after a while that we weren't sure how to move forward. We had been meeting, we had requested meetings of Lynn County Attorney, of the chief of police, and of our mayor, and unfortunately they were unwilling to meet with us as organizers and concerned community members. And so we asked ourselves as a group, what should we do to move forward? And we thought we would have this town hall to really hear from other members of the community, to share information, to collaborate and figure out a path forward for all of us that we all own and feel good about, whether our local leaders and politicians joined in this conversation or not. We thought it important for all of us as community members to get together and share information. So we've invited people to the panel who have information that we think, or knowledge that we think can help answer some of the questions. While we understand the police and Lynn County Attorney have a lot more information that we don't have, at least as concerned community members, we could share information and try and develop a path forward that makes sense under the circumstances of this particular case. Anything else?
Just one other to add to I wanted you all to know that we cordially invited our elected officials, and we also invited every city council member to this event. We invited every elected official. There's one elected official here, and I'd like to acknowledge two. I'm sorry, Liz Bennett and where's our other, and Art. So thank you, Art Stead, and thank you, Liz, for coming. We appreciate it. This event wasn't meant to bring elected officials here to embarrass and to attack. That part of being a leader is looking people in the eyes and saying, even if you don't know, I don't know, but I'm going to go find an answer. I don't know. I can't tell you this, but this is why. That doesn't happen in letters. That doesn't happen in canned words. And so that is why we wanted to be here. That's why we asked them to come here. Part of being yelled at or emotions, that's just part of this process. But that's what they get paid to do. That's what you're a leader for. And so we wanted you to know that we cordially invited them and they didn't show up. Okay, so we got enough? Should we get started here? So we'll go ahead and introduce our first panelist. If you could just quickly in a minute, just introduce your name, your organization, and then tell us why you're here today. So we can start with, yep, that mic's ready.
Good afternoon. Oh, it's on. All right. Well, I want to thank you all for coming out. My name is Dietrich L. Doolin. I am currently the Cedar Rapids branch president for the NAACP. And the reason that I'm here is because, this tragedy is happening in our community. Unfortunately, so many tragedies are going on across this nation. It's just really hard to realize and to accept what is going on in our nation. We're having just numerous problems popping up all over the country, and it just seems like we hear Black Lives Matter. Lives matter, people matter, and we need our people in positions and of authority to recognize the importance of how the loss of a life impacts this community. And it's not just a trivial thing, it's an important thing. So the reason I'm here is hopefully we can come together as a community and encourage our representatives that are in positions, or the authorities in positions, to take this matter seriously and take the needs of the family and the community seriously and address that here in this community. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Ann Brown. I am a local attorney here from Cedar Rapids, and I'm here because the group Advocates for Social Justice asked me to come and provide some information about the legal process and some other issues that may be being presented as part of the questions arising out of the charging decision and the prosecution of this case. I'm not with the Lynn County Attorney's Office. So, any information that I have is the same information that you have, the information that is available to the public. But I'm hopeful that I can at least provide just some background information about how perhaps community members can assist in ways in the investigation and what may be some of the issues. I'll be speculating as to what could potentially be the delay in the charging decision, but I know that there are some issues arising from some various legislative decisions that I think people may have questions about, and I'm hopeful that I'm able to answer them.
How you all doing? I am Devonna, a.k.a. Jermaine Cooper. I'm the founder of PAVE, Parents Against Violence Everywhere. And my job here is to reassure the community that we won't stop. We won't let them keep us waiting no longer. We won't let them stall us no longer. We're going to keep fighting. We're going to fight. We're going to fight. And we're going to fight. And I'm just asking this, we can continue to get you all's help as we do this. And once we all keep coming together and being stronger, there's nothing that can stop us, okay? Thank you.
Okay, I think what we'll do is just quickly summarize the events that have happened up until today. I will do my best to do that, although I think members on the panel might have more to add. As we all know, on January 2nd, Devonna Walker was murdered. She was stabbed to death. Subsequently, the video was leaked on the internet, and most of us have unfortunately seen it. I will be honest, I watched it once and I have not watched it again because I can't. So my memory is dated, but in that video you hear an argument, an altercation between Devonna and her neighbor Jesse Chavez, and as Devonna, the man, what's his name again? Shane, the gentleman, the other neighbor, is yelling at his significant other to come inside, leave her alone, whatever. And eventually he sort of changes his tone and he yells, I'm gonna curse. He yells, I'm gonna fucking kill you. And he comes outside and he is more aggressive in his tone, whereas in the beginning he was the opposite and trying to get the woman inside. And then he starts, yelling, you fucking nigger at Devonna, and at that point she was walking away, and then she comes back and hits the woman, and then the man steps outside, and it looks as if he punches Devonna, and then Devonna stumbles away and collapses on the grass, and is motionless, and the woman is yelling, accusing her of faking it, calling her a bitch, and the dog's running around. I think you all have watched this, and it isn't until a couple of minutes later that people realize she's been stabbed, there's blood everywhere, and everyone kind of begins to panic. So for many in the community, you would expect that there would be repercussions for the murder, but to my knowledge, Jesse and Shane were taken and interviewed by the police. Other people have been interviewed on the scene by the police. Of course, we know somebody took the video, and the police have that video, but there has been no charge, there has been no arrest, and also, to my knowledge, there have not been a lot of formal witness statements, but maybe that has changed. So those are the facts, at least as I am aware. And so again, part of the purpose of today is to figure out if there is more that we don't quite understand, and we're hoping that our panelists can share if in fact there is more that we need to know. For example, it seems to me that if you say I'm going to fucking kill you and you call somebody a nigger, that would be a hate crime. And so we can talk through sort of the process, of filing a hate crime. I don't have experience with that. Anne can talk to us a little bit about what that process would look like and who would be involved in that. And similarly, procedurally, what Nick Maybanks is thinking as our Lynn County attorney. What more evidence would he need to charge someone? And we can also talk through stand your ground, because there is a lot of talk about Shane being acting in self-defense or potentially asserting stand your ground, which would then make him immune from charges. So that's a brief overview of, I think, where we are. Of course, we've had a number of protests. Jermaine mostly has been organizing those, because there are a lot of folks in the community who feel like it seems obvious that a black person was murdered, and the murderer, everybody knows who he is, but nothing has happened. So I will stop talking, and I will hand it over to our panel. I think it might make sense if we start with Jermaine. And Jermaine, you could sort of attest to whether that's an accurate description of the facts to date or if there is more.
Well, so far we know, as y'all know, it came on the news that only 2 people was interviewed and released from jail, which we kind of find out that it was actually 4 people interviewed, because they interviewed Shane, Jesse, and then they also interviewed a little boy and his mother, as well as another witness. And the witness that they said they took in, I come in close contact with her, and she said they asked her no questions. All they wanted was her phone. They made her sit in the lobby for 2 hours. And when they came out, they just wanted her to sign a statement saying that she was signing her phone over to them so they could get this video out, but they didn't ask her no questions. She was there through the whole crime scene. She the one recorded it, and it's like they didn't ask her nothing. So right now we just trying to figure out what they trying to cover up, because to me, I'm in the community, and it seems like they really trying their best to cover this up and sweep it under the rug. Like, I don't know what for, but we're gonna find out. I promise you all, we're gonna find out. We're not letting up. We're not, even if it take 15 or 20 of us every week or every other week to come together to show them that we will not stop. That's what it's gonna take. So, like I said, we constantly in the community. We're not gonna give up. We're not gonna lose hope. We're not gonna get distracted away from our job, and our job is to bring justice to Devonna's family, as well as justice to the community. So if anybody got any questions for me.
I had a follow-up question, and as we think about the witness, one of Jermaine's concerns was that other witnesses were interviewed, and the family didn't know about it, and that process by which the person was interviewed, that they were asked questions, they sat in the lobby for 2 hours. In these situations, is that typical, that they interview people and don't talk about it, or they interview people and don't tell the family? Can you talk a little bit about the witness interview process?
Yeah, I can talk to what I know about it. So I do think that it would not, I don't think that it would be that the Lynn County Attorney's Office should be releasing witnesses, the names of witnesses that they've spoken with, for various reasons for the witnesses, but mostly to protect the integrity of the investigation. And it's very frustrating because we may all rightfully feel like there's not any, that the investigation is stalled or just really kind of half-hearted because we don't have any information. And that may well be the truth. But if they were thoroughly investigating and speaking with all of these witnesses, while those witnesses may share that information with us, I wouldn't anticipate that the county attorney or the police department should be providing that level of detail to people. They have an ethical obligation to protect the integrity of their investigation, because I think what people want, obviously everyone wants a charge, but what people really want is a conviction. And I think that the county attorney probably has an obligation to make sure that they keep their investigation confidential until they have to try this case, should they issue charges. If the county attorney makes a decision not to charge, there'll be all sorts of questions for the county attorney to answer. But it sounds like the information that people have, they're very disappointed in what they feel like is the investigation. And I'm hopeful that events like this and the community concern will lead to a more robust investigation. But I will say that absent the information that we may get from witnesses, we may not know the extent of the investigation, the actual investigation, and I would say that I think that that's fairly appropriate until a charging decision is made.
So a follow-up question about witness testimony. What should witnesses expect in order for their testimony to be helpful or admissible? Do they have to go to the police station? Does it need to be recorded? Is it under oath? Do they sign an affidavit? Can you kind of speak to what a witness should expect?
Sure. So I think that witnesses can expect that it can happen in any number of ways. When they're interviewed, they can kind of provide a summary back to the witness to review. They can record it. They can do it at the police station, but they can interview witnesses elsewhere as well. They may ask them to sign a signed affidavit. I would anticipate that what is most important for the attorney is that they have their witnesses kind of lined up and that they know sort of reliably what each of the witnesses is going to say. And I will say it certainly doesn't feel like that's the way, like that the community should be directing the investigation, but we've had experience in another event very recently in which that's kind of what happened. We were a little bit disappointed with what we felt like was the investigation into a particular crime, and we encouraged and brought people who had been witnesses to the police station, and that really kind of forced them to conduct an investigation into a crime that I don't believe they were originally going to charge, and it wasn't something quite like this, but that was effective, I think, in sort of changing the course of what was originally going to be maybe a traffic violation to a more serious crime. But I think that that's what witnesses should anticipate. I think people may feel like there's a video, so the information that I have isn't relevant or that the police don't need it, but that's not the case. I mean, there are going to be witnesses who saw, I believe there are witnesses who saw from other angles than the video was taken. The person who provided the video would need to be a necessary witness in order to ensure that the video is admissible. There are some other issues that we may talk about that witnesses would have information about, including the background between the potential defendants and the background of the interactions between these defendants and Devonna. All of that could become relevant depending on what the charges and what the defenses are, and there are probably a lot of witnesses that have that information and that could assist in the prosecution.
Yeah, go ahead.
I just want to, I'm trying to figure this out. So if the police up here, I don't know if you can answer this, but I just want to put out there. So if the police get a call that somebody is being stabbed to death and they respond to this call, why don't nobody get arrested? Why was they took in an interview? It don't say we had 2 suspects. It say they was interviewed and released. Yet and still, the person that gave them this video the same day of this incident. So they been had this. They didn't ask her no questions. They didn't ask her what all she seen. They didn't ask her nothing. They just made her sit there in the lobby for 2 hours. And then they came out and had her sign this paper stating that she would release this video to them. So my question is, how do that work if you get called for a murder scene and you're not arrested for it? Like, how did they even, like, it's mind-boggling because I want to know, how did they even come up with this stand your ground self-defense right here over Devonna's body?
So I think Jermaine brings up a few good questions. So one is about criminal procedure and sort of the probable cause to arrest and sort of a burden of proof to convict. Can you talk through these different aspects of criminal procedure?
Sure. So I think that there was a choice made, and I don't have any justification for the choice that they made in not arresting them on that night. I mean, we all know they could have been arrested. And the only people who can answer that are, the investigating officers that night as to why they didn't arrest. And I don't have an answer for that. There is a difference between, at this stage, I suspect what the county attorney is working with is the fact that there wasn't an arrest and now they're left, making a charging decision. And I have no idea who was consulted that night. Based on the information that's out there in the public, it sounds like the killer's story was given and perhaps there wasn't another version that they went out and got. And I don't have a justification for why there wasn't an arrest. The only people that can do that are the investigating officers. And I think now that we're kind of past this, because they were released, now the county attorney, allowed an investigation, that I believe the public statement was concluded, but I think that we can all hope that perhaps it wasn't. If what we have about the information that was included in the investigation is accurate, it seems like perhaps there's more to be done. But while it doesn't feel like that's usually what happens, the county attorney should not, make charges and ask questions later, even though we know that happens. In this particular situation, he'll need to be prepared, but I can't say why they weren't arrested. It's not something that I understand either.
One factual question. Do we know who called 911? Does anybody know who called 911 first?
I believe that the young woman that realized Devonna was stabbed and realized that everything was on the ground in blood, she was the one that asked him to come.
Oh, it wasn't until that point.
I believe it was the bystander.
Question for Diedrich, as a leader of NAACP, when is it that you all decide as an organization when it's time for you to get involved in cases like this? Because the assumption could be, oh, they're just getting involved because it's somebody black. They don't even know the case, they're just there. So when you think about the NAACP's role, when is it that you all decide, you know what, we need to support this because it's wrong?
Well, the NAACP gets involved when something happens in the community that affects the community. We deal very often with racial issues, and I just want to say that we're in communication with some of our legal authorities. We have a meeting tomorrow with our national office and our legal chair. But one of the things that really concerns me on this matter is the stand your ground information. That's just kind of more of a rumor, but we've already started looking into this, and it's very clear that stand your ground in Iowa is not very strong. Let's just be honest. Iowa is a red state. It's becoming more red than these chairs in here as the days go on. It's just to tell the truth, But the reality is when we look at this situation, we looked into the stand your ground law so far, and if you use fighting words like nigger, that's a fighting word. If you use that, you can't use your stand your ground. That's what the law says. You can't use the stand your ground and incite it. How do you? I just struggle with how someone can kill someone and not have to prove their innocence. I don't understand that. That's just really a struggle for me. How do you kill someone without being able to prove that you didn't? And you said you was going to kill him.
Right.
That sounds like that was the plan. I mean, that's premeditated to me. But anyway, that's just me. That's not necessarily a legal thing, but the stand your ground cannot be used if you use a fighting term like nigger, and nigger is not covered. It is not covered by any laws that allow you to call somebody. That's a fighting term. That's what the law says. So we're looking at that in that way. We're trying to get some more information from our attorneys on which way we should be going with this. But at this point, we're concerned about the fact that at least the rumors out there that they're using the stand your ground. I'm gonna be honest with you. I think if I had killed somebody, I'd still be having to explain. My lawyer, I'd had to buy me out. I'd be having to explain what happened. I'm just saying that's just unfortunate that that's what happens in this country.
Yeah, Diedrich, let's be clear. If you did this and you stabbed a white woman, you would be in jail, and it's possible that the police would have killed you when they came.
Possible.
It's possible.
Possible.
But let's, if a lot of these questions pertain to stand your ground, so I wonder if we could give it back to Anne to talk about, so Diedrich mentions that stand your ground would not apply if you incite. So maybe you could talk to us about that, but also, is it true that hate, using, we all know, as black folks, we know that using the N-word, that's a fighting word. Like, you can expect, excuse my language, but you can expect to get your ass kicked if you used it. That's just, I'm not from Iowa, but where I'm from, that's the law, right? And so, is that true legally? So, talk to us about stand your ground.
Yeah, so we are all kind of speculating. I don't know how it got out in there that there is an issue with stand your ground, but I don't think it's probably speculation to say that there clearly is some sort of issue related to a claim of self-defense, and stand your ground really goes to that. It's kind of a change that was made in 2017, and what happens is, the problem is it's basically legislation intended to create kind of a campaign soundbite, but really in practice, what has happened is it's created an additional defense in kind of very violent crimes. Those are the kinds of cases in which this is causing problems, not, with intruders coming in to people's homes. So what Stand Your Ground did is it eliminated some of the requirements. Right. So what happened when they enacted what they call Stand Your Ground is it eliminated some of the requirements for making certain self-defense claims. But to be entitled to the defense, kind of as we know it, the reasonable belief or that your defense of yourself or others, you have to have not done anything that a reasonable person would anticipate would bring about a physical attack. So there's not sort of a blanket rule that if you say this, then this. The question is, would a reasonable person sitting there feel like their actions, what this guy did, would have brought about this attack? And I think there's probably a lot of evidence that a reasonable person would think that. Perhaps even including the background between these people. I think most people probably watching the video were just waiting or thinking to themselves, oh, I can't believe this, divulged into physical violence. I think most people hearing, what was exchanged were probably anticipating that that's what was going to happen. So you can't basically egg someone on and then claim it as self-defense.
And then,
if you watch the
yes.
whole video,
And then the follow, there is, that's stand your ground. And you can assert self-defense.
Yeah. So before Stand Your Ground, you had a duty to basically, they called it a duty to retreat, but what they meant was you have a duty to find a way other than killing someone to get out of a particular situation, even a dangerous situation. And Stand Your Ground largely eliminated that, but there are some exceptions that could be applicable here, but we don't have enough facts. So, for example, if you're committing a crime at the time, another crime, then you still have a duty to retreat. you don't get the, the benefit of the revisions for Stand Your Ground. And so we don't know. Again, there's been some speculation about whether just simply carrying this weapon outside of his home could potentially be a crime. There is a Stand Your Ground case, an Iowa Supreme Court case, in which it was illegal for the person who was asserting the defense to even have the gun that was used, and so because of that, he wasn't entitled to any Stand Your Ground defense. And so if this person wasn't entitled, or if it would have been illegal for him simply to be outside of his home
With the weapon.
with what they would call a dangerous weapon, which a knife can qualify as a dangerous weapon in various circumstances. And, it depends kind of on his background. There are some, I'd be speculating, but there are some issues that raise questions for me about whether or not he was permitted to carry a dangerous weapon. It appears that there's an old felony, there's a fairly recent domestic abuse. Both of those are offenses that often carry with them a ban of carrying a dangerous weapon outside your home.
Thank you, Ann. Thank you. Go ahead.
So, if you sit here and provoke a fight, if I sat here and constantly picked on you and provoked the fight with you, and you retaliated against me, could I fight for self-defense?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the kind of fight.
But I'm saying, but as you say the video, he provoked it from the beginning to the end. How could he claim self-defense? He had nothing to do with the fight, period.
Right, so I think the question is, and usually that's a question that a jury answers, right? Would a reasonable person who was standing in his shoes doing what he was doing and saying, would they anticipate that that there would be that they could be physically attacked for that? And I think that it's a reasonable person standard, but in this case, there's a lot of evidence out there too that indicates kind of what they call his subjective intent. I mean, like was said, he said he was going to kill her, and he killed her. So it's a hard claim, whether it's a hard claim legally, but certainly factually, it's hard to claim self-defense when
So,
The other question is reasonable force. Can you speak to that a bit?
I can speak to reasonable force, but part of the problem was that with the amendments to Stand Your Ground, there were kind of some eliminations to reasonable force, meaning it used to be, you can't, if you were worried that someone was going to, step on your foot, you couldn't, kill them to protect yourself. And some of those things were eliminated, but again, that presumption is not available to someone who is committing a crime. You still have a duty to find an alternate option. And those are two separate things. One is a question about whether or not he has a duty to retreat or find another way. And the other is basically you're not entitled to it at all if you're an aggravator. And there's a reasonable standard that goes to that. I mean, you can't just... Some of the information that I personally feel would be relevant, and if I were sitting on the jury, goes to kind of this, may go to this background between, these folks, because you could say, some things to one person that you wouldn't feel like would provoke them. Not everyone, but if you say them to another person, I think most people would know that that it was gonna provoke a physical altercation. And
thanks for sharing that. We appreciate that. I think these are tough questions, and I want to say again, and I'm going to look this, Tiffany, Nick, and Wayne. These are neutral questions that you could be answering and contextualizing. We're not asking this lawyer to take a side here. We're asking to answer these questions so that we understand the legality. And that's why we wanted those questions here. So I want to thank and for doing the best you can for answering questions for people that are here that should be able to answer these. So I think we've reached, we're at the 2:50 mark. So I do want to, I guess before we end here, kind of thank you all, you three panelists. We are going to do some Q&A here and then take a little break. And then we're going to have some other folks up here on the panel. So we've got some questions, but thank you so much. Thank you, Ann. I know it's tough. You're answering a lot of questions that Nick should be here to answer, and we appreciate you for that. Well, should I start with the questioner?
Yes.
So I've got, some of these questions have been answered, so I want to make sure that I go through them, though. But this question was, he's rumored to be a police informant. If that turns out to be true, how would that change the case? Does that change the case if this person is a police informant? So, right. We don't know any of that, but I understand the concern, and that's why I'm asking the question. If they're an informant, does that change their situation?
It shouldn't.
Okay.
So there are a couple of questions. What's that?
Can the lawyer get some theory on that? I know, but can you get some theory on that?
On whether he was a police informant?
If it turns out to be a police informant, how does that change the case?
It shouldn't impact the case at all. If he has relationships with investigating officers, there should be other investigating officers. That's what I would say to that. Someone else that doesn't have, I mean, there can be conflicts, perhaps, but we don't have any information for that. Even if he were to have relationships with the county attorney that created a conflict, then it should be, a different county attorney. And the same with regards to who conducts the investigation. It shouldn't be people who have relationships with the accused, but it wouldn't impact legally who.
It shouldn't.
No, it shouldn't.
One thing I'm gonna let you know. Does that create any liability for the county attorney's office or the police department if those facts turn out to be true? Does that create a liability for them?
Probably not.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so I might need help from the person who wrote this. Stand Your Ground, May 13th shooting. It looks like a man named James Siegel.
There's a successful stand your ground defense in a case. A man shot another man in his home on, I believe it was May 13th of last year. He called 911. He was initially charged with first-degree murder. It was downgraded to some voluntary manslaughter, I believe. And then in November, it was dismissed. And the only online filing I can find, I haven't looked at the court file, but it was a stand your ground defense. And so they dismissed it very quietly, no press release. The Gazette barely mentioned it. It's a murder case with a successful stand your ground defense before it went to trial. The shooter was a white male. He shot the 39-year-old man once, more than once, including in the back. And he was still able to use stand your ground. Now, he was in his home, in his basement at the time. But there's been no information about that at all to help educate the public about stand your ground defense, okay? And the man who was shot was an Asian man, just to bring that element in there. And I have another thing on the other side of that. Stand your ground is a very unfortunate law that we should all be incredibly anxious to get rid of, because what it does is it allows a person to go immediately to use lethal force before they do anything else. Take a step back, push somebody, whatever, regardless of what the other person is doing. If they understand the law enough, like you're in your home, somebody's there and they're not supposed to be there, whatever, it's a fairly easy defense. I haven't seen the success, or I haven't found yet a successful case anywhere in the nation, but I haven't done a lot of really deep legal research, but of a person of color successfully being able to argue the defense. Stand your ground. So that combined with there's no reason conservatives and want the stand your ground law so people can feel like, oh, I need 17 automatic weapons to defend my home from perpetrators, whatever. And so then they have this defense if they kill somebody, they're off the hook, right? But it's really not a protection that makes the world a safer place.
That's right.
And
Well-
if somebody accidentally walks into your house, you can blow their freaking head off and say, hey, I didn't know who it was and I was afraid.
Well, and it's very problematic for people of color, particularly for black folks, because there is implicit bias. We all know this. So a black person appears to be more threatening, more scary. I mean, look at George Zimmerman and Trayvon Martin. He asserted stand your ground as well. And the problem with stand your ground is it can make you immune from prosecution, right? So self-defense is an affirmative defense, right? You argue that as your defense. It's my understanding that stand your ground could actually be used to prevent prosecution at all.
And that's a terrible thing. Like
Yeah,
it's
particularly in our
the
criminal justice
county
system.
attorney, and they just take this person's word. On the other side of that, I had a question about, in complicated cases like this, grand juries aren't that common in state court in Iowa, but they're common in federal court. But how likely is it that in a complicated case like this, where they want a group of unbiased people to review the facts as they are known at this point, and to be able to ask questions of those witnesses, how likely is it in a complicated case like this, where there haven't been charges yet, there's a lot of public interest, it's just complicated, stand your ground is fairly new defense here, how likely is it that it would be taken to a grand jury?
So I don't think it's highly likely in this case. I think there would have been some indication. And here is how I feel about grand juries in state court in Iowa. So my only experience with grand juries is that I have at times represented victims of police violence and civil claims against the police department. And in those cases, the grand jury was essentially used by the county attorney, in my opinion, for the purpose of simply washing their hands of the case and saying the grand jury didn't indict. Because it's confidential, there's no one, the county attorney can put on sort of the evidence that they want to put on. It's different in federal court, the way that their grand juries are confidential as well, but in Iowa, usually the county attorney can simply file a trial information in order to issue charges. They don't have to have a grand jury indict. And in my experience, the grand jury has really been used as a scapegoat for county attorneys, primarily in police shootings. But because there's not a level of accountability. We can't see what evidence they put on, and they can just come back and say the grand jury didn't indict, and we have no idea what the grand jury even knew.
So I just want to real quickly, I know earlier we were asked about witnesses. The reality about a witness, if a witness hasn't made a formal statement, it doesn't matter. If they don't testify in court and there's not a formal statement, it can't really be used. If I'm a witness and I just talked to her and I told her what happened, that can't be used in court. That's hearsay. So if I don't sign a statement that this is what I saw, if I don't go on record and do that, that's not going to be used in court.
But you shouldn't need no matter. You got it on tape.
No. It doesn't matter. But if my testimony is going to be used in court, it needs to be formally done. It needs to be formally done. It can go along with the tape, but it needs to be formally done. Just me saying it, I can tell 1,200 people what I saw, but I refuse to sign a statement that I saw it. Because when I sign the statement, that can be used in court. They're not going to be able to use that I told 1,200 people that I saw X, Y, and Z. And I'll understand the other thing about stand your ground. Stand your ground in Iowa is weak compared to the federal law. I just want you to understand the stand your ground in Iowa doesn't have a lot of meat in it. The, stand your ground on the federal is stronger than the stand your ground in Iowa.
There was one question about the Citizens Review Board and the role the Citizens Review Board might take in this case. And that's an interesting question. Somebody would need to submit this to the Citizens Review Board for the board to review. The purpose of that board is to review police conduct. So if we thought there was misconduct here, then we would need to submit that to the Citizens Review Board. Do you have anything to add there?
I was going to say on top of that, just to let you all, and I want to look you in the eye, Mother, and let you know how hard we've been working. We've been in touch with Attorney Crump. We've been in touch with Attorney Crump's office and been told the same thing. I've got text messages from their office. We've been trying to get him here. Obviously, we know nationally why he's not here. But what he also told us is that this was a criminal case, and Attorney Crump's office typically deals with civil cases, meaning if there's misconduct by the police department, that's when they would step in. So they're reviewing the tape. They have the tape right now. I don't know whether they'll come back and say they're going to help us, but one of the things that they're talking about is whether it's civil or criminal. So until there's charges or proof or an accusation of misconduct by the police, that makes it a little more challenging. So. Great question. I think the question was, since the police have submitted their investigation to the district attorney, to the Lynn County attorney, how long does the Lynn County attorney have to make a decision? Is there a time limit on that?
I don't think that there's a time limit.
And I think there's a statute of limitations, but would be a long time.
Yeah, for a murder charge. So I think, and I think if the investigation really was completed so quickly, I mean, certainly the county attorney can ask for further investigation. I don't think, they don't have to make their decision on, what they have in front of them. They should, and so if there is more information to be provided to them, that would, hopefully it can be provided, and hopefully they go out and get it.
So one question alluded to in a number of these is it speaks to the history between the parties, to past calls to the police for harassment. One person speaks to Devonna not feeling safe at Cambridge. There was another question about having a hostile place for African Americans and what's sort of the duty there. So I guess what relevance does that history have here, and is that something that Lynn County Attorney or the police should investigate in making a charging decision?
I would say it would make sense. I do know when we talk about the issue of the hate crime, what I was told that this was turned over to the FBI and they didn't find it as a hate crime. What I don't know is what information did they have. We have a call into the U.S. Attorney's Office. They haven't responded back. But my understanding is the FBI did not find this a hate crime, but we don't know what information they got.
Well, I have heard that too, but then I don't understand, because procedurally I don't think that's the process. To your point, I believe this should be submitted to the U.S. Attorney's Office for an investigation of if it's a hate crime. That is the U.S. Attorney that would be deciding that, not the FBI. Is that right, Ann Brown Legal?
Yeah, I think that I would anticipate, because there are a lot of questions about whether or not this is a hate crime or a potentially federal hate crime. I think that that Devonna's family and the NAACP should meet with the U.S. Attorney's Office to discuss the potential for investigating whether or not it's a hate crime. And I personally would anticipate that the U.S. Attorney's Office certainly would be willing to do that.
So if Devonna or members of the community have in the past called the police because of racist attacks by the murderer and nothing was done, that potentially would be a civil cause of action.
I think if your question is, would it be a potential civil claim against the landlord?
Well, it could be against the police, or it could be against the Cambridge Apartments.
So the police have a lot of immunities that a landlord may not have, for one thing. But the evidence is relevant to some of the issues that are presented in the criminal case as well. So we'd already talked about what was his anticipation of what Devonna was going to do in response to his conduct. They've had, prior interactions. I think that that's relevant to what he thought was going to happen when he went to antagonize her. I think it's also relevant to determining his own intent, sort of his prior hateful and racist conduct, because the intent was not to defend himself. Like we said, he said what he was going to do, and then he did it, and that's very relevant to his claim of self-defense. So I think that information is relevant to the police, and it would be to a potential civil claim too.
This is a great question. It's directed at you, Anne. Would it have been, and we've talked about this, so would it have been okay for Lynn County Attorney Nick Maybanks to be here today? We've talked a bit about that. Maybe you could speak to the reasons why, what would be the justification for him not to be here?
So I saw his letter declining, and I think if you kind of take him at his word, I do think that there would be concerns for him. I think he said he was concerned that it was, not typical, and that he has potential ethical concerns. So attorneys report to, the Iowa Supreme Court. We have certain ethical obligations, and there are certain ethical rules. And I could see that he may have concerns speaking publicly about a case, particularly before he's issued or before he's made a charging decision, that he would not want to have to answer for. So there could be issues where transparency and perhaps his ethical obligations could, don't really mesh up that well. And so I think that when he says that he had concerns with coming here and answering questions about the case, I think that those were probably valid concerns. He also will have to answer if he tries this case, to the trial judge. And I don't think we all have to be careful when we're the attorneys involved in a case about what we put out in the universe to the potential jury pool. Because we can get in trouble for that. And so I do think, I know everyone is really frustrated, and I don't really even know Mr. Maybanks, so I don't like being in the position of defending him when everyone wanted him here, but I think that he probably did have some valid concerns with answering questions about this case at this stage.
Just to
Basically, what you're saying is, if he came here and he said anything, he could jeopardize his opportunity to prosecute and get a conviction, right? And that's the last thing anybody would want, that something he would say would give his defense team, the killer's defense team, a legal defense beyond stand your ground if that's his choice.
Yeah, or just that he would have any potential evidence out there that would be contrary to his case. I mean, he doesn't, that's not, I just do civil work, but we don't talk to the press or for pending cases. We don't let clients talk to the press for pending cases, because ultimately you want that to be preserved and presented to a jury, and you've got to pick a jury from Lynn County that doesn't have information about the case, that hasn't prejudged the case. And so there are a lot of considerations in putting information out there when your office is the one responsible for prosecuting the case.
Yeah, I would argue respectfully. I would disagree with that, but that's just me. Because I think what is being said behind closed doors could be said here publicly, and I think if we were looking here today, and I want to be honest here, the questions that have been asked today really are from a level of passion, but they're neutral questions. We're just asking about the procedures? How do we play the game, right? So I think those are questions that any lawyer could answer. Here's another question I do want to, someone wrote, it seems as though the bottom line is that the CRPD is racist and protects white people and punishes everyone else. Devonna Walker has the cards stacked against her, not only as a black woman, but also a black woman who stood up for herself. My question is, our local government institutions are largely supportive of this. What are we going to do as citizens to demand the act of protection, that the demand as a city that they protect us? I think what I'd like to do is, if you don't mind, because I think this is probably leads us to our next session, which is really what can we do because I think this is a community question. What can we do to make sure that we put the pressure on the city to do their job? So I'd like to, whoever wrote this, I'd like to kind of address this as part of the next session, if you don't mind. So I want to thank you all again. And Ann, I can't tell you, I just got to tell you, I know this is hard to sit here and answer all of these legal questions. And again, I think from a level of neutrality, it would have been nice to have other legal minds here. So thank you again. And thanks, Jermaine, and my uncle, Dedrick Doolin. So we're going to take, yes.
Okay, we're going to take a quick break, but before we do that, the gentleman that created this image, you notice it's outside. You have an opportunity when we break to sign it. I'm just going to read some remarks from him. His name is Thomas Clark. I'm happy to be painting such a beautiful soul. Unfortunately, I am not painting this for a gift or a milestone. I am painting it for another senseless killing. Another killing of a black woman, a mother, a provider, a killing nonetheless. These incidents are happening way too much in our community and around the country. We as people have more in common with one another than difference. We need to work on building relationships with others and teaching, learning at the same time. We also need the same justice equally for wrongdoers. I left space open on the canvas for comments and memories of Devonna. Please feel free to leave a memory or message. Hopefully this canvas will touch and teach. I want to send prayers to Devonna's family and friends. I want to thank Melissa Kay and the NAACP for reaching out and involving me to paint Devonna Walker. With love, Thomas Clark.
And we have one more statement from who took this and then created, when you talk about marketing consistency and visual and language, so what you've seen online, the Facebook post and the graphic that was done there was done by Darlene Town, and she says, and let me back up, Thomas couldn't make it today. He wanted to say to everybody he wished he could be here. He had a prior engagement with the birthday parties in Iowa City, so he wished he could have been here for everybody to meet him. Darlene Town says, I'm Devonna Walker's designer, Darlene Town, and she did not hesitate to offer up her creative services after hearing the horrible news about Devonna. The phrase, I am Devonna Walker, shines a light on a woman, daughter, sister, mother who lost her life. It evokes a sense of community as it could have happened to nearly anyone, and it reminds us to strive for civility and to protect all members of our community. Words are powerful and can easily be used as weapons. They can also be used to bring people together. They can be used to speak the truth. So thank you to Darlene Town for the graphic design.
Okay, so we're going to swap out our panel. If you all want to use the restroom or sign the painting, now would be the time, and we'll see you back here in 5 minutes.
What's up, man?
No, you are wonderful. I mean, considering you're not a criminal defense attorney, being answered the
I've been fighting them since I was in high school. Well, no, since I was in middle school. I was in middle school here.
It's horrible. I mean, I'll do looking into it. I mean, I don't get into natural or anything like that, but just trying to find, a person of color who's actually been able to use that as an offense. You know, and I mean, George Zimmerman is an absolutely horrific example of that. You know, and then this case, you know, this Rivers man shot somebody in his home. I don't think it's seemed to be but then shot him and still was able to use it.
Why would you not take So I hear
And in this case, she was at the threshold, and she either lunged or tipped towards him. And when I saw that, I thought, oh, I gotta read that section of the code to see what it says. You know? Yeah, because we can just kill somebody because their dog poops in our yard. If they come onto my porch, you know what I mean? It's ridiculous. It doesn't benefit anybody but people who have a predisposition to violence, right? And people are upset about the law the way they should be. And then also, you don't have to provide care to somebody who's injured or nothing. Hands off, you don't have to do anything. Just stand there and watch them die. It's ridiculous. That's a legal combination. I don't think that's well, that's why I need 6 guys. 7 years ago, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, I was doing continuing education courses. Some of them were like onboarding and most of them the other way. But I did extensive research for a couple of months to find were there cases where somebody really did defend their home with firearms successfully or stop the mass shooting successfully because they were armed. And there was even a case where they were in training. They were in training like all kinds of safety training, and they were given a fake gun. And they knew at some point during that weekend that there was going to be an active shooter situation that they were supposed to pull out their rifle or whatever it is and defend themselves, right? And even in that situation, regardless of whether they had had previous firearms training extensively or just a little bit, nobody was successful. And they knew it was coming. I mean, and the whole idea was like to prepare people to be safe. And then here what they find out is, because, you know, you put your gun under your shirt. Well, how fast you get that out? Or they stand like the TV movies. They stand up and shoot. I'm sorry, you just make yourself a target, right? I mean, or they put it in their purse. You know, it could just all these. And some of these people had 100, 200 hours, you know, at the range, blah, blah, extensive training, whatever. And they still weren't successful. But Americans love their guns, and they love to say, I mean, my brother just bought a firearm. He's got a son. He just bought a firearm and said, I need it because these times, you know, people are bad or whatever, and they need them. Do you really know how to use it? I mean, I'm a mouth and I'm in your face, but I mean, to shoot somebody?
Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. Okay, a couple of housekeeping items. You will notice these postcards. There are lots of them. Please feel free to take them, pass them out across the community. On the back, there's a QR code that will take you to a Google Drive where we are dropping updated information. So you'll find graphics there you could use on social media. You'll find press releases. So information that you can share on social and throughout the community you can find at this QR code on the back. So take postcards. Also, on your way out, be sure to sign the canvas with your name and a message. And Corey just told me something else, which I already forgot what she told me. Oh, you can, on your way out, you can also make signs, because we will be protesting here in the coming weeks. So if you want to make some signs, we have stuff for you to do that. Okay, so we're going to move on to our next panel. I'm going to go ahead and hand the mic over so our panelists can introduce themselves.
My name is Tarek Morrow. I am the founder of We Are CR.
Yeah, while you're here.
The main reason I'm here today is because as tragic as this event is, and as hurt and angry as we are, I know that some of us, probably a very large portion of our black community here in Cedar Rapids, we are angry enough to burn this place down. However, at the end of the day, we have to live here. So I'm here to help, or at least attempt to encourage my people, as well as our allies, to let us move forward in a way that does not make it worse for us than it already is.
That was beautifully said, Teray. I'm here for the same reason. I'm Angelina Ramirez. I'm here as the Vice President of Advocates for Social Justice. I'm also co-founder and co-director of a newer organization called Our Future here in Cedar Rapids. And both organizations really focus on uplifting marginalized voices and empowering those to be able to do community action and be able to put the power to the people and to enact greater change within Cedar Rapids. We've seen from our last panel how many issues Black and brown people face daily within the criminal justice system, right? And I want to touch on that later, just how many things we all sat there and started to understand the obstacles in front of us. And hopefully here in this panel we could focus on how to move forward, how to have collective action to push greater good. And yeah, I'm happy to be here. Given the circumstances, I wish I wasn't, right? I wish we all weren't here, but I'm glad that we are present to apply that pressure.
My name is Pastor Ray Coleman. I pastor the Mount Zion Church here in Cedar Rapids. I'm also a co-laborer of Standing Unity. My reason for being here today is not only am I a concerned citizen, and I'm also a father with children myself, but my wife and I, we just moved here from Houston, Texas, and we've seen movies like these before, and I want to give way to my experiences with the faith base and trying to have better communication between the community and the government or the city officials here, and that's something that I really, really want to focus on, is how do we improve those relationships so when something does happen, you don't have empty chairs.
Hello, I'm Reverend Gary Sneller, and today I'm representing Marion Alliance for Racial Equity. I'm also co-leader with Dr. Coleman in Stand in Unity. And I'm here today because as a white male in America, I have privilege. And not everyone has advantages that I have. I'm also a person of faith. And I believe that as a person of faith, I am called to use my privilege in a way that benefits and blesses others. So I want to make sure that I don't just hoard that privilege or deny that privilege, but to use it in a productive way. This T-shirt also is says another reason why I'm here today. I'm a father of 2 daughters, and if the life of my daughter was taken away, I would want to ask these questions, and I would want to demand these answers. Devonna Walker is my daughter.
Thank you all. Thank you to everyone. So again, we said we were going to start out this off with really that question is kind of, that's where we're at in this transition. And that question was, it seems as the bottom line is that the authorities don't care about black folks. That's what we're saying here, that this was a black woman who stood her ground. So the question is, our local government, if they don't care, and they're not supportive, what can we do as citizens to make a difference? And I want to start with Dr. Coleman or Dr. Schneller, from a faith community, because I think this is important. When we have these emotions, and many of us are emotions, I know many of us, and I've been in that position where I'm thinking to myself, I don't got time to hear about the Lord. I don't got time to hear about my kid is dead, right? How do we marry those importance, the importance of being calm, collected, having that faith, whatever their higher power is, whatever anybody's higher power is, having that faith, but also being in the streets and taking care of business?
Great question, and I think first of all we've got to start with it's not so much how we act when we get here, it's what are we doing before we get here. How are we building those relationships with the mayor, the city officials? What types of vehicles are we using to effectively cultivate those relationships? Because when it comes to situations like these, when those relationships are not there, then you feel the way you're currently feeling. So that's why it's important to me as a faith-based leader and a community leader that I'm in contact. I go to City Hall, I'm sitting with the mayor, have conversations, trying to build those relationships. I have her cell phone, I have her home number, she has my cell phone. We talk and we communicate. So when something does come up, the two of us can talk. It's difficult. But it's something that we all have to remember is that we have to conduct ourselves in such a way that communication can flow. If you remember remember the words of Dr. Martin Luther King. He talked about that he rather choose love than hate because hate is too much of a burden to carry. And I get it. I'm with you. I'm just as angry, as upset as some of you in here. Because it makes no sense. But if we're not cool, if we're not calm, if we're using other foul languages going off, and we're talking to city officials any kind of way, the first thing they'll do is back up from us, and that's not what we want. We want to be able to engage them. Now, is it right for them to back off from us? No, it's not. I'll be the first to tell you it's not. But we have to cultivate those relationships. We have to make sure that those practices, those vehicles are in place. So when we get to places like this, that we have open communication to talk. Absolutely.
It's true that we have to work harder at that connection than the white community members of Cedar Rapids, right? There's a reason why 6 organizations, 6, were banded together in this coalition to host this town hall, and that still wasn't enough for our elected officials to be sitting in those chairs and answer the questions themselves, or have the courage to decline answers, to decline questions themselves. And that's important to recognize, because it's been on the shoulders of Black and brown people to fight for equality and justice within systems that were created by white people and perpetuates white supremacist notions and ideals. And it's been on us to lead this fight for justice for Devonna. So when we're talking about how to move forward, I encourage you, if you are in a position of an ally, that you gather your friends and you show up. And you host, you help us lead these protests, and you show up in numbers, and you call the county attorney's office, and you send them letters to let them know that we are watching, and we expect answers.
That's a great point, Angel, and I appreciate Pastor Gary Snell's comment earlier, and I also appreciate Ann Brown coming to sit on the panel as well. It is important that we engage our allies, and so I wonder how can we do that better? How can we get more of our allies in the room fighting with us? Because it seems like in this instance, it's been a little bit more difficult.
It's important to get the message out and to keep it out there. As part of Marion Alliance for Racial Equity, we have a number of citizens who are connected with our organization, but we just have to keep getting that word out and making sure that we use the emotion that we are feeling in a positive way. As a person of faith, as a white person of faith, I think it's important for us as white allies to really stand up, stand with, act with, and not just be silent, because white silence is an act of violence against people of color. So let's get the word out. Let's use our energy in a positive way. Those of us on Marion Alliance for Racial Equity, we are meeting with Marion city leaders on a regular basis and trying to communicate concerns from people of color in the city of Marion. We know that there is a hesitancy for people to speak out. Please speak out and use allies to help you to amplify that voice.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, what I'm going to say is that we have to stop expecting them to do anything for us, first of all. Now, we have to give a hand to Liz Bennett, to Sammy Sheets, and for all those other elected officials that come out here and they stand with us and help us to get done what we need to get done. However, the Bible says that the Savior will come from amongst them. Man, we need to be teaching our kids and our own friends and our own families to run for these offices. We need to have black people running for these offices. That's what we need. We don't need to keep asking them people to do nothing for us, and we don't need to keep begging these people to help us. We need to help ourselves by having our own people fill up these places. These relationships that the pastor said that we need to cultivate, we already have them. Y'all my friends already. Y'all my neighbors. Y'all my relatives, my cousins, my aunties, my nieces, my nephews. That's who we need to be having running for these offices.
We need to start encouraging and helping our own people to fill these offices up. Then we don't have these empty seats.
Yeah.
Because Nick Maybanks ain't one of us. He ain't come from where we came from. Tiffany O'Donnell ain't one of us. She didn't come from where we came from. We need our own people who come from where we came from to sit in these seats.
Thank you. Yes, I need to make a note right now that we tried. We tried to get this woman in office. And my question is, where are we going to be next time we have another Amara at the table? Are you going to be at the ballot box? Because that matters. So that's a great transition to this next audience question, and that is, depending on our allies and policy matters, how do we get white Democrats involved in the process as allies, people with power in Des Moines right now? The last 5 years, they've opposed stand your ground laws. However, they've been silent on Devonna Walker as well. So from a policy standpoint, and I'll open up to any of you all, how do we get white Democrats, and I'll just say in Des Moines or in City Hall here, how do we get them to use their power and their leverage more?
I wish this answer was easy, and I wish I had an answer to give. Because if we had this figured out, we wouldn't be facing this issue right now. I will say, I feel like, and I'm not from Cedar Rapids, but I've made my home here because of the community that I've found. But I have found that white people in Cedar Rapids often disassociate these cases of violence and these cases of racism within the criminal justice system from the greater picture. They think we are immune. We are not immune. Right now, we've seen the case of Tyree Nichols, right? It get a lot of attention, as it should. It indicates, as does Devonna Walker's case, parts of the criminal justice system that fail black and brown people every day. We're talking law enforcement. For Devonna, that was a failure to protect her from the harassment and racial abuse that she faced prior to the day of the incident. It's also law enforcement failing to make an arrest on the scene, right? Second part is the courts, the legal system, the failure to give Devonna justice through a lack of an arrest. And thirdly, it's the legislative session, which gets to your question. That dangerous laws, such as the Chapter 704 in the Iowa Code, otherwise known as Stand Your Ground, right? That is in place, and it hurts black and brown people. It hurts black people. And I think we cannot fall into this idea that we are immune from this. And I know a lot of the Democrats in the Iowa legislature have been fighting against these bills. And the unfortunate truth is, often they don't even have to talk to the Democrats to pass this, right? The Republicans can just pass this without even talking. We need to make this a statewide issue, not just a Cedar Rapids, Des Moines, Iowa City issue. This is a statewide issue. It's an epidemic of violence against black people. And we have to show up to places that we don't even live in, and this is the unfortunate truth, to be able to get other people from across the aisle to understand where we're coming from. And I hate that we have to do that, but that feels like what we have to do. But I think by us making it bigger and bigger and having more and more attention on it, it has to be in front of their face. If it's on their TV, they're going to watch it. If it's on their social media feed, they're going to have to read it. Right? And that's the best we can do, is continue to push it and push it and push it and let them know that time will not change what we're doing. Jermaine has been doing Tuesday protests every week. Even when people are working, even when he could be doing other things, even when the family could be doing other things, they show up. And that's what we need to be doing, showing up every Tuesday, every Saturday, every day, at the town hall, in front of people, at City Hall, wherever we can be, to make them watch, to make them listen.
You
I
can
think-
have 5 minutes at any city council meeting. Every single person in here, every time they meet, you right.
It is.
But these are people who are already engaged. To read those people, and they're also like that to white people, I'll tell you that. They don't listen to me either.
Yeah, so Amara and I just came up with a great idea. Yeah. So we do want to plan our next city council visit, and we want to see who all is going to show up. We appreciate you all here. We're taking numbers. We're going to try to put something together. But I think to kind of wrap up, put a bow around that. How do we get Democrats and white Democrats? It's white Democrats and white people. And I have to say this to my people who don't involve themselves in politics very much. We don't have to like politics, right? I don't like politics, right? You don't have to be a scholar at this game to understand it, right? I'm not asking you to put down your social life to do this, but you got to get involved just a little bit. Your vote, that's ultimate. But just read something online. I know we're online reading SportsCenter, and I'm reading stuff about hip hop music, and I'm reading everything that I care about personally. But take a moment just to read something. Just a couple paragraphs. Talk to somebody. Watch a news show. Like, we have no excuse about why we're not politically involved. We outnumber the people who are oppressing us. So we're here. We're the choir, and I know I'm preaching. I want you to talk to your friends. I do this all the time. You know this. I've sat in my music studio. I don't care if you drink, smoke. I don't care what you do. That's not my business. My business is, do you care about this social justice? What you do under your roof is your business. Do you care about this social justice? So talk to your friends, because we have no excuse about why we're not involved in this process. I had to teach myself that. And this man taught me, and I'll never not be involved again. And I hate politics, but I'll never not be involved again, ever. You have to do that.
But I also hear you saying white people, black people, Democrats, Republicans. Family. Everybody on the sound of my voice. We are nothing but a human family. Yes. This flyer that was given to me says, I am a mother of three. I am a daughter. I am a sister. Yes. I am a friend. I am Devonna Walker. Yes. Yes. We have violated the universe by using these terms, white and black, when it describes the human family. That alone has created confrontation. I am your brother. You are my sister. You are my brother. You are my sister. That's it. That's all.
We didn't invent these terms. The colonizers did.
Family, 2023. We're in the age of enlightenment. We're in the age of knowledge. So if we're going to continue to operate from ignorance, then we don't need this. We don't need this. But we want to evolve. We want to grow. We want to become the human family. Not the white man, not the black man. We know what we are. But them colors don't represent what I am.
Facts.
I'm a daughter. I'm a brother. I'm a sister. I am your neighbor. Do you care if I got something to eat? Do you care if I'm crying? Do you care? Come on. Stop trying to make somebody outside of right here.
Now,
Be something that needs to be right here.
I understand, brother. Understand, brother.
No, I'm not taking away from what you're doing, family. Because we know that those legislators, those positions exist. But if we, as individuals, want something to change, we got to take the ugly out of us. Come on. That's why we need the term white and black, because we can divide you like that. Democrat, I can divide. You my brother.
Hey.
You my, that's it, that's all.
Everything you saying, bro,
I don't want to be right.
but you are. But you are. Everything you saying, you are absolutely right. However, based on the rules of the game, we ain't there yet.
based on the rules of the game, in order for us to get to that point, those are the ones who have to be enlightened. Because we're not even the ones in power to make the choices. Understand what I'm saying?
You didn't have no power over the name given to you. I don't know your name, my friend. But I'm going to share something with you. You can stand here today and say your name is Beetlejuice. But I'm just saying, that's the kind of power you got.
For sure.
You can stand here and say, I'm going to choose to love you, brother. I'm going to choose to love you, sister. That's it, that's all. And you know what, bro? Because we want validation. Who gonna validate me? When I came through my mother's womb, I was validated by God.
Come on, that part.
Come on, help me up in here. Because without them, bro, we gotta stop the division. That's why we killing each other. Tyree Nichols is dead today because of division. Somebody told me because I'm a black man, and black men did that to him. And it's not about color no more, bro. It's about where's your spirit. You can't break my soul. I think Beyonce just wrote that song. You can't break my soul. I'm gonna tell everybody. Because I'm going to go through this process of learning how to love. Somebody tried to break my soul while I was learning how to love. You ain't going to break it. Jesus is not in the grave, as they tell me. He ain't in there. So that means everybody can take their power back. Take it and say, I choose to love you. I don't got to like you. I choose to love you. I choose to operate from a frequency of love. Each one of us can choose to love. They say, how do you stop shopping at Walmart? I'm not telling nobody. I'm just saying, if you want to stop something, you don't have to say how we do it. No, how you do it. Yeah. How you do it. How you do it. You start with you and watch how the vibration. So one can put how many in flight, and 10 can put how many in flight.
So, and I think this is the goal.
Gang, baby, we want somebody. We want a leader. We always look for a leader. Come on, family, human family. Lead. Love. Let love reign from you. I don't need you to stop killing. I gotta stop killing with my mind, with my thoughts, my attitude, my behavior.
You see that?
I don't need you to
you see the young man sitting next to you, to your left?
I can lay 1,000 pistols on that floor right now, and I can say, who want to go up here and do what they do?
You see the young man to
Where
you?
your heart at? Where your heart at?
You see the young man to your left?
To my right and my left.
And you see the young woman in front of you with the phone? All of us in this room right here, we feel you. We understand what you're saying. And we agree with you. Now the problem is you got 100,000 shades out there who we need to get to understand that same message. And that's the problem. Nah, I know my power. I know my power. But listen. I can love Shane as much as I want to love Shane. But if he ain't gonna love me back the same way, man, he still ain't gonna love me back the same way at the end of the day.
The other thing, sir, is what you're speaking to is our goal. And until our systems, right, our systems need to understand what you're saying. And right now, they don't. Our systems don't treat us all the same. The systems that work for us, they're supposed to work for us, they're not. They don't operate in the way that you are describing.
Because our vibration is off. You're white, I'm black. You're a woman, I'm a man. You're a Republican, and I'm a Democrat. So it ain't gonna never work.
Well, I agree that we need to vibrate enough to dismantle our systems. So we need more vibration to dismantle the systems that exist today. Yeah. Okay, yeah.
I apologize for speaking over you, but I'm trying to talk with you. But at the same time, we gotta take our power back individually. Individually.
Self-reflection, people. It's about self-reflection. I think what the gentleman said is self-reflect.
I'm not saying that the offices that's been put in place are not powerful and they can do what they do, but they're not going to do nothing as long as we tolerate it. We tolerate it with our thoughts. We tolerate it with our behaviors.
What I'd like you to do is take that message and take it outside of this room, and can everybody take his message and take it outside of this room and tell that to your neighbor and tell that to your friend. It's an and thing. See, we're playing this or game. It's an and thing. We got to do what he says, but at a practical level, there's a game, there's a board game called life, and we don't got the chips. And so we got to play the game a mentor told me, until we get to make the rules, you play the game, and to play the game is to have an ally. And it's unfortunate that ally is white. I didn't label him that. But if that's the chip I got to play, okay, we're going to play that chip today. While I love you on the side, it's an and. It's an and. We get caught up in or. It's and both. So real quick, I've got another question here. Call the police. Is there a way that the phone call that Mrs. Walker made to the CRPD can be reviewed and released, just like the horrific video? I think the answer to that is the video was leaked. And my guess, unless Ann or anybody wants to answer that, I'm certain that they've got the 911 call and that somebody, I can't imagine that nobody's not reviewed that. But if anybody wants to comment on that.
That was my question only because I feel like she would have been protected by the phone call and the implicit bias was heard by the person that she spoke with. None of that all of this could have been prevented if what he's saying take the action back. If somebody would have took action and said, I called you 3 times, I've been ignored. Let's expose them right now.
Yes.
Let's expose them for being absent, because I feel like if we would have got it on the ground level, which is the system that we're fighting against, her phone call would have been honored. They wouldn't care how black she sounds. They wouldn't care how angry she sounds. Right. They wouldn't care that she was a woman in distress. And if you say, I fear for my life, and you ignore me, you're letting me die at the hands of somebody who hates you.
So here lies.
My question, that was for the last thing I wanted to know legally how that works, because that sounds like a civil issue that between the police that could have been, if they can release, if you're so quick to release a video, where's the damn audio? Here. Right. Of the call. Now, regardless of how many calls there were, whether there was 4, 5, or 6, that should have been released before some video.
The 911 call, you're saying?
Yeah.
Right.
I feel like that would have determined, because, you have it all the time. Some white chick at Starbucks gets racist, she loses her job. Okay, if whoever was on this phone call with her, if they were white and they didn't listen to her because she had a black voice, let's get to the bottom of that. Yeah. That is part of the system.
Well, we're talking about this root cause, systemic issues, and you're right. How do we address that? So again, it's an and. Let's fight for the violent, but let's work on the systemic issues. Great question. Get that? Okay. Why, another question here, why is this environment of Cedar Rapids so hostile towards African Americans?
And this is just my own personal theory, but once upon a time, Cedar Rapids was a sundown town. That means that if you look like me and you, by the time the sun went down, you needed to get out of town. And though today we've been integrated, the majority of Cedar Rapids, the population, we have 13%. Yeah, 7. Okay, it was worse than I thought. There is a 7% black population in Cedar Rapids, right? That means 93% of this population is white, right? 90% of those white people are racist. And that's why Cedar Rapids is so racist against people like us.
Are we racist, brother? Can we be racist as black people? Can we be racist as black people?
I think that's a philosophical question for another time. We can have that discussion offline. Yeah. Yes. If you give me just a moment here, we've got Pastor to share a few words for us. Thanks.
All right, so I wanted to remind us why we're here. We're not here to win a battle or anything like that. These panelists are giving up their time. And it's hard for everybody else to hear, right? So when someone is talking, please allow, not just for yourself, but for everybody else to hear, so that we can hear the wisdom that they have. And remember, Devonna's mom is here, her family is here. Respect that, okay? Reconciliation, just what we're trying to work out right now is racial reconciliation, and it takes all of us right now, okay? So I'm just here to say, like, we all about this beloved kingdom that Martin Luther King was talking about, the beloved kingdom, where we're all working together. And it's okay to disagree. We don't have to bring that fire. It's okay to disagree and move on. So let's be about that beloved kingdom, that racial reconciliation, that we know that we can't move forward for our sons and daughters unless we're doing it together. Okay, so let's respect each other. Let's remember that Devonna's mom is here, that it's not about our own little thing. We're trying to work this out together, okay? Thank you.
So we're back. It's 4 o'clock. It's 5 after 4. I want to be respectful of everybody's time. We said that we were going to be until 4. So I don't know what your thoughts are, but what I thought I would do is really allow our 4 panelists here to say, one of the things that we wanted to do at this last session is, what can we do as community members to continue to keep this fire going? Because Devonna's mother deserves that. The feeling could be that we're not doing anything. We're not doing enough. We're not doing enough. So I would ask from you all, from the streets to the sanctuary, from the streets to City Hall, what can we do to help and continue this fight?
I think that we should show up to these protests that Jermaine is holding. And I think that somebody mentioned that we could speak at City Hall. I think that each and every one of us should pick up 3 to 5 friends and everybody go to City Hall, ask for their 5 minutes, and everybody go in there and lament and complain about Devonna Walker.
Yeah, I think that's... Yes, okay, so I was going to advocate for that exact same thing. Thank you. Tuesday, 1 p.m., protests are happening. Everything is happening on Tuesdays, 1 p.m., down at the police station, and then you usually march to the courthouse. And this Saturday, if you're working during that time, we are tentatively planned to have a bigger protest. I'm talking invite everybody that you know. It's a weekend, no excuses. Come down, and we're going to march through the streets. Okay, Saturday. Thank you. And that's good to note. Don't park in those parking spots. Okay. And for more information on times and where we're meeting, just make sure that you're following one of the organizations that are within this coalition, so that you could get updates on when and where we're meeting for Saturday as well. I also want to offer ASJ and some of the other organizations had met with Nick early on in the process alongside Devonna's mother, and he mentioned that they needed more witness statements. Now, hearing that, we offered our help and requested to meet, which he declined. That being said, if you know somebody that still can give a formal witness statement, and for justifiable reasons they are anxious to go down to the police station, especially after hearing that somebody had to wait 2.5 hours, some of the organizations will send a volunteer to go with you and escort you or the witness to the police station and make sure that there's no intimidation, that you're offered the same legal proceedings as everybody else, and just make sure that you have one other person right next to you as you give a witness statement. So if you know anybody that could give a witness statement, please don't hesitate to reach out.
I would like to say that I think one of the best ways that we move forward is we move forward together. The same message from every church, the same message to every organization. Whatever we decide to do, we have to do it together. The strength is in our numbers. It's not a one-person voice, it's all of our voices. It's hard for them to overlook all of us, but it's easy for them to overlook one of us. Whatever we do, do it together. I think churches should work together. I think different organizations should work together. We've got to make sure we're all doing the same thing. If it's so that we all sit down tonight and write a letter to the mayor, if we all do it, there's no way she can overlook that. If we all send a letter out to our district attorney, he can't overlook all of our letters. He can overlook one or maybe 5, but not all of them. We can make sure the post office sends him a bag of mail every week. Whatever we do, we have to do it together.
Go ahead, Pastor.
I will be very brief. Get connected. Connect to your social justice organization. If you're a person of faith, connect to your community of faith and advocate through your community of faith. If you are just a citizen, get connected to your neighbors and try to make sure that you know what's going on in your neighborhood and in your community. Pay attention. Get connected, pay attention, and then finally, keep asking, keep talking, don't shut up. And I know there's been some comments about white and black, but I do want to say something to white people. You know who you are. Don't be apathetic. Get involved.
Thank you. Jermaine, did you have some?
I just want to say, because we do got Devonna's mother here, and I just want everybody to keep this same energy, man, because it's sad. All of us in here right now, yeah, Devonna this, and we're gonna do this. And when Tuesdays come, it's only 3 people out here ready to protest. They looking at us like we fools. So if we can come together, because we know the news gonna be here to talk about Devonna's justice, why can't we hit the streets like that? So this Tuesday at 1 o'clock, I want to see everybody. If you're not working, make a way. Come out there. Because this lady's mother do need justice. It could have been you. Anyone else could have been Devonna in this building. And just so happens she was black. Like he said, it's not a race thing, but she was black. So that's what we gotta dwell on. The fact that this African American sister was killed and the whole world has seen this so far. And ain't nothing happened. I feel sorry, like my prayers go out to the incident in Memphis, but them killers been caught. Them killers been caught. We gotta focus on home. And home is Cedar Rapids and the justice for Devonna. So let's keep this same energy. Please, thank y'all.
Thank you, Jermaine. So some closing thoughts. This has been really helpful. I think, we have come up with a number of strategies moving forward that will work. They will work. I mentioned earlier these postcards with the QR code on the back. Our elected officials' contact information you can find here. Pastor Coleman mentioned letter writing. I think that's a great idea. We can post some letters here, so you can take a letter, sign your name to it, and send it. That's a great idea. So information, all the information that you need, you should be able to find using this QR code. So be sure to take this and take several so you can pass them out. I'm going to just go over some important dates. We have Tuesday, 1 p.m. We have Saturday, this Saturday. The other suggestion that came out of this townhouse is that we meet at city council meetings. There are 2 in February, February 14th at noon, and February 28th at 4 o'clock. So if you work and you can't come to the noon, you can come at 4 o'clock. We'll have information at that QR code. If you're needing talking points, something to say, you can literally just pull it out of a document right there. You'll know exactly what to say. So we need to stay connected. We need to stay informed. We need to bring, next time you go to a protest or to a town hall, bring 5 friends. Let's get more people involved. The more people we have, the more pressure we are putting on our Lynn County attorney to press charges to move forward, the better.
There's another opportunity, and not a lot of people go to their neighborhood association meetings, but I will tell you, there's somebody from CRPD there every frickin' time.
Yeah.
And I've heard, I'm from Oak Hill Jackson Neighborhood Association. Our next meeting is 6 p.m. on February 13th at the Harris Building, Lynn County Public Health Building on 6th Street. We always have somebody from CRPD. We usually have somebody from SafeCR, which is the nuisance thing, and we always have a special speaker. And you can suggest speakers to your neighborhood president, and they can bring somebody in to ask more information. A neighbor told me that one of the complaints about our neighborhood association is that there aren't people of color there. I mailed a postcard to 1,000 residents in my neighborhood. I didn't know what color they were. Every person I meet, I can ask them at an event, do you live in Oak Hill Jackson? Come to my neighborhood association meetings. So if you're not going to your neighborhood association meeting, and not every neighborhood has one, but the core areas of the city do, you're missing an opportunity to make that connection that you were talking about, and to be seen. And, I mean, who wants to go to another meeting? Not me, and I run the damn thing, okay? But it is my opportunity to start to build those connections, because even though I'm a white person, it is nearly impossible for me to build those connections with elected officials and people in city departments, because they don't have to be accountable to me. But I'm going to make myself present at city council meetings, and I'm going to make myself present at my neighborhood association meetings, and I'm going to make myself present for causes like this that I believe in too. And you can do the same thing. You can come together with your neighbors so that you already have a community, you already have established relationships, so that when something like this happens, you know who to talk to right away. And that's one of the main reasons why I wanted to get mine started, because the residents don't have a lot of power.
Yeah.
The businesses do, and that sort of thing. Money talks, developers talk. But every single person here can go to a neighborhood association and have that little piece of power for themselves, show up at city council twice a month, have your speak.
That's right.
You don't have to have a mayor's cell phone number. You can still show up and she'll listen. Thank you.
So get involved is the message there. The last thing is, don't forget to sign the poster on your way out. Anything else?
Yeah, I think it's appropriate for us to end in prayer. So I'd like our pastors here, Pastor Coleman, to lead us, if you don't mind, so we can really end in prayer. Keon, if you're here, if you could come down as well, we would appreciate you three. Thank you.
Would you bow with me? Gracious God, we come today with passion. We come today with wanting to know answers. God, we want to see justice done. And we want to see justice done for today, for Devonna. But we also want to see that justice so that it can start a rhythm for the next generation to be able to live in peace and flourishing. It's not just for right now. Just like our ancestors, God, who were enslaved, they prayed. They prayed in hush harbors, knowing that one day we would be free. God, let us do what they did. Let us believe in the beloved kingdom, God. Let us believe in that beloved kingdom that you started, that reconciliation that happened when Jesus, you rose from the dead. God, give us that power. Let us not do justice without you. Let us stop acting like we can do justice without God. The civil rights movement was made and was acted, and it was activated by the Spirit of God. Spirit of God, you are here today. We thank you for who you are. And if there's anybody who rejects God, we ask that you would come and allow them to know that you are the only way that justice really can happen.
God, we ask now that you would be with this family. They need you in so many different ways. This mother, those children. God, touch as only as you can. We know you got power. But God, I also pray that you would help us to put our arms around this mother, those children.
Yes, God.
That God, that whatever they need, we should be able to together sustain it for them. God, I pray now that you pick up every bowed down head, that you help us look toward you. Your word declares in Psalms 121, it simply says, I will lift up mine eyes to the hills which cometh forth my help. My help comes from you. Touch as only as you can. God, have your way.
O God of all people, O God of justice, we come to you in prayer today, asking that your Spirit would guide us in the path that is right for your people, all your people. O God, through the prophet Micah, you have told us what your will is for all people: to do justice, to love kindness, and to walk humbly with you, our God. This is our prayer. Amen.
So that concludes our day. If you haven't signed the contact, please make sure you sign up. Please make sure you check our Google page. These organizations are trying to make it easy as possible. Get the QR signs. Thank you. Tell a friend. And let's get justice for Devonna. See you in the streets.